All right, thanks, Ben, for jumping on the Healthcare Digital Marketing Podcast. I truly appreciate it. You and I have known each other for a little while now, and I think you offer so much value and industry expertise in the dental space. So we got a packed podcast with some very insightful information that you're going to provide today. So I'd love you before we get into the questions, just introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, again, thanks for having me on. We've known each other now for several years, and certainly respect what you're doing in the space of digital marketing. That's why I love to refer my clients to you. And so my journey over the past probably 20 years of being in business for myself has gone from selling advertising, getting
Mm-hmm.
into the agency space. And then 10 years ago, started a dental marketing company. We had some other clients, in the medical space and here and there, but it's really focused mainly on dental and a little bit of medical and veterinarian. But
Okay.
kind of what happened to me was seeing when we were successful with campaigns,
Right.
what made them successful. When we weren't successful, what didn't make them successful. We weren't always perfect, but
Sure.
what I would find is, especially in the dental space, it's when people would try to convert marketing leads. So they put everything on marketing and a marketing agency to
Yeah.
convert, but there was a lot of things internally performance wise that just wasn't happening. And, why was this working for one dental office, not working for another? So a
Right.
couple of years ago, I started getting trained. I've always had a business coach for probably the past 15 years. Did wonders for me. So I really got into business coaching. That kind of led to more performance management.
Okay.
So now what I do is I take leadership. We do leadership programs. We do team development and then marketing. So how all three of those combine in a strategy, we
Right.
have a very specific way of doing that. And it's been fun. It's been great. I wanted to be an architect when I was younger. So I wanted to
Nice.
see how businesses grow. And this is just a different way of doing that. I want to be able to drive by a practice one day and be like, man, that had a doctor and two operatories 10 years ago. Now look at it. So
Right. Right. That's
that's kind of where,
awesome.
yeah, that's kind of where I've gotten to where I got.
That's awesome. So, like a side note, from a business coach standpoint, so I know there's a lot of other dental consultants out there, and there's even business owners. Like, what are there pros and cons in your opinion to having a business coach? In the dental space or just in general. I think there's a lot of consultants that would love to just hear your experience with a business coach.
Yeah. So it's interesting in dental, maybe only 9 to 10% of dental business owners have a coach, a
Yeah.
business coach, where that's closer to 30% in other industries.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And a lot of it is understanding the difference between a coach and a consultant. A consultant, and I do both, but
Okay.
a consultant is there to guide you and tell you what to do,
Right.
more so, where a coach helps you be aware, um, understand the process you need to go to be successful, what activities, how you're going to interact with your staff, how you're going to interact with customers or patients. But it's really about you and your journey,
Yeah.
where consulting kind of falls more in hey, here's the processes and systems. Here's, things you can apply to your practice to be more productive or perform better. So that's why I end
Gotcha.
up doing, that's why I call it performance management, because I can't say it's just coaching, because there are times I have to kind of lay it out there to get it.
Right. Right. Exactly. So I guess from a business, management consulting standpoint. So I know leadership, like helping a lot of these dentists have quality leadership within their practice. Also an engaged team to support marketing. Like, what does that look like as you're, helping them grow their practice?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the old saying, people like doing business with people they like and trust. So have
Right.
you built a brand based on leadership? And I come from the old school, maybe you do too, of the whole, it's all about lead generation. Let's get as many leads as we can, get
Yep.
people in. And I think that worked for a while, and I still think it works to a degree, but you really have to build a strong brand.
Right.
And I don't mean that you've got a great website and you've got a great logo.
Right.
It means that you've built a great vision for your practice.
Yep.
So when I go in and I sit down and I consult with somebody, the first question I ask is, 5 years from now, if this is exactly what you want, what does that look like? And what does that feel like?
Right.
What do you want this to feel like? And that's very tough for people. So in leadership training, that's what you're really trying to get to is, how am I going to lead this practice?
Right.
And how am I going to lead my people, hire the right people? I work with a lot of transition practices, and they struggle in that transition to become that leader because they don't want to upset the flow of the practice. But really, that's the best time to come in and do that.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised. A lot of the staff wants that to be. But back to the marketing side of it is, if you're a great leader
Yep.
and you've built a great team, as a leader, you've got that vision of success that now you can work back from. And now your staff, if you can get them to buy into that vision of success, and if they don't, then that's when you start to look for people that do.
Right.
They're going to convey that to the patients. So if you love your practice, like I tell people all the time, like, you should make your practice to where it's hard to sell, because
Right.
you don't want to get rid of it. Right.
Right.
And your staff loves it. And so the patients are going to love it. And what's ultimately going to happen? They're going to come back,
Right.
and they're going to refer. And I love how in marketing you can do lead generation, get
Yeah.
people in that don't trust you yet. You
Right.
haven't really done anything to gain their trust, but you're so good at what you do, and you're so likable, and you do what you say you're going to do, and you make agreements with them, that they're like, wow, I've really got to talk about this person.
Right.
They're really good. So it all really works together great when you start with strong leadership.
Yeah. A few things that resonated with me there was, just pretty much creating a referral system through, within your practice, offline, online. But it's funny how you talk about, there's some dentists that are transitioning to a new practice, and they don't want to change anything or disrupt the flow. I had a conversation with a dentist today, and it was the same conversation, exactly what you just said. So you hit the nail on the head. But then also, like, you'll see dentists where, we understand, like, a lot of these business owners are, head down, they're working hard. It's hard for them to really showcase a lot of, or develop leadership and culture and their team within the practice. And that's where I think you come in and really can, open their eyes. And I think it's a breath of fresh air for them to be able to, know that they have someone on their side that's in the dental space that can really add value when they're, working really hard, but still help their team stay engaged, still create leadership within the culture. I think from a team engagement standpoint, it's so important for what you do as well, because, MedRank does marketing. So for us, if we're sending leads and patients to a dental practice, if Susie can't, convert these leads that are coming in, she's just giving price and not adding value and not trying to book an appointment, then you see that, there's just not a lot of engagement. So they're wasting marketing dollars. Do you ever see that, with some of the dental practice you work with?
Oh yeah, that's exactly why I'm doing what I do now. I mean, I could give example after example after example of this, but I had a group in Nashville, Tennessee one time, and I was talking to the guy. He worked in one of the practices, high-end cosmetics, and he wanted to get more production. We get that all the time. Forget
Right.
hygiene, we want more production.
Right.
But the thing was, when I talked to his office manager, they were only answering the phone. We did call tracking. They were
Okay.
only answering the phone 28% of the time.
Oh, wow.
Of that 28% of the time, they were only asking people if they wanted to set an appointment, maybe half of that. And then maybe
Wow.
they were, booking 5 or 6 appointments.
Okay.
And he was spending a good amount of money.
Sure.
And so he would get frustrated because he's like, oh, I'm only seeing 5 or 6 new patients coming from this. And I'm like, well, the real issue here is, what can we do internally? And they hadn't really even gone in and mined their patient list and said,
Yeah.
okay, here are all the people that don't have a tooth. Let's do implants. They hadn't
Wow.
even done that. And their
Wow.
treatment planning percentages were very low. And so it was, I eventually had to ask the question, even as the marketing guy, and that's how I was making my living, why are you marketing?
Exactly. Exactly.
Let's fix these issues. And back then I didn't do performance management. So I was like, you need a consultant.
Right.
And ultimately the office manager kind of explained it to me. She was like, he micromanages. And I get that. Some people, have that boss hat on more so than a leader.
Right.
But he would have been a prime candidate for leadership training and getting his team on board. And there were a lot of areas he could improve that practice. But yeah,
Gotcha.
I see that
Gotcha.
quite a bit.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for those insights. And you alluded to earlier about brand development. So, how do like, what's the process? What does it look like to help a lot of these dentists develop their brand in the community?
Yeah, I mean, again, I go back to that whole leadership brand. You got to start at the end, figure out what that vision of success is. That's tough,
Yeah.
right? So trying to think of a good example. I had a guy the other day that he's really struggling figuring out what his brand's going to be. Because
Okay.
again, we can go through the logo process and feel great about our logo and, put together the website and that looks great. And
Right.
you and I look at a website like what's functional. How are people going to
Yep.
convert on it? We don't look at the aesthetics of it and feel one way or the other.
Exactly.
So I don't look at branding that way. I look at it like you have to create a feeling in your community. So this guy was like, well, should I put a banner up at the local Little League field?
Okay.
And I was like, sure. But I mean, it won't do you any good if nobody knows what that brand is. So
Right.
it's great if people know who you are. I'm old school advertising and marketing. I believe in reach and frequency.
Yeah.
But once people know your brand, the more reach you can get, the more presence you can have. That's great.
Right.
If you haven't established a brand that people know. So branding to me is more, forget about you're the best implant doctor, you're the
Sure.
best cosmetic surgeon or the best veterinarian, whatever it might be. You may really enjoy travel.
Right.
So that's something that could separate you from all the other dentists in your area. And
Yeah.
so you could do blogs based on top 5 places to travel to, say you're in Duluth, Minnesota,
Yeah.
Duluth, Minnesota, that are in days, because people share that. It's shareable content.
Right.
Now
It's
you
different.
just, yeah, it's different. It's authentic. And I know people are getting sick of hearing that word authentic, but it's true. It's
Yeah.
absolutely true. So you really have to think about for your brand, what's going to influence.
Yeah.
Your advertising is going to persuade, but at the end of the day, you just want to create to where people know you. We had a lady that was a Styles and Smiles dentist because she was one of those types that wears high heels in the operatory when
Okay.
she comes in. It's like, okay, well.
Nice.
But the suggestion to her was, if you like styles so much, I'm not sitting here saying you got to spend a lot of time writing a style blog.
Right.
Why can't you incorporate some of that? And in her marketing, in her ads, she would give away like sunglasses or things like high end that were more fashion based, because she
Right.
really wanted to attract high end moms.
Okay.
She was a mom in that category.
Right.
And that worked for her because it was creating shareable content online. When she would do direct mail, it had her on it with, based on fashion. So it really just kind of clicked. And
Okay.
that's what I mean by developing a good brand, but also being a great leader so that your team buys into that and
Right.
doesn't think that's too out there.
Right.
Um,
No, that's awesome. And it's so funny, like when you talk about, just overall influence. So, what we focus on at MedRank is really Google. Like we want, our clients to rank in Google. It doesn't matter how well you do SEO.
mhm.
If you're not getting people to click on your website, then there's no influencing factor there that's going to trigger Google's algorithm to say you deserve to be here all the time. So to your point, yeah, the call to actions, the content, all those things, all the SEO elements are out there. You need to make sure that it influences the behavior, which is getting someone to click on your website when they're searching for your services. So you're exactly right. And then I think from an aesthetic standpoint, you mentioned one time before, you hate when you see dentists like take pictures with their arms crossed. I think part of the branding
I got
aspect.
a couple pet peeves. That's the biggest one though. They look like a genie granting a wish. I don't know why photographers tell them to do that, but yeah.
Right. So it's funny. Like, yeah, I think you really think even when it comes to the overall design, from their messaging to the design, you really think about how to help them influence behavior and be different and be
Mhm.
unique and authentic. I guess from a marketing standpoint, when you look at marketing performance, how do you help these dental practices look at KPIs and metrics to really help them understand what's performing or what they should be concerned with?
Okay, so now you're going to get me into pet peeve number 2, which now makes it sound like we're just trying to be negative, and that's not what I'm trying to do. When you hear the word ROI, does that excite you or stress you?
I would say for a dental practice, it probably stresses them. It
Yeah.
excites me though.
Well, yeah, if you get a good ROI, right?
Right, right, right.
Um, so it's the thing with ROI, return on investment, is if you're really going to use that as an indicator, you really have to think about what everything gets as an ROI.
Right.
And I'm not saying that I don't look at people's, if you did SEO and you did pay per click and you did direct mail or you did a church bulletin or you did a billboard or whatever, you're not trying to look at that ROI.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, your janitor has as big an ROI as your marketing does, because if that place isn't clean, people aren't coming back and they're going to talk about how gross it is.
Exactly.
Landscapers, everybody, your
Right.
employees. I mean, you'd have to have an ROI index for everything. So as it relates to marketing, the biggest one I look at is patient acquisition cost.
Yeah.
So if you're spending, I don't know, $5,000 a month or whatever that would be, and you get 25 new patients, um, whatever that might be. So let's just say it's $250 patient acquisition cost. Is that getting better over time? And even if it's not,
Yeah.
if it's not getting better, why? Are we bringing in bigger cases and that just costs more? That patient acquisition cost is more. So, I mean, if you want to be a high-end cosmetic dentist in a
Right.
town where the average income is $35,000 a year, your patient acquisition cost is going to be really high.
Yeah.
Um, Pediatrics, usually pediatric dentists, I'm fairly low on that one.
Yeah.
That's going to be easier to do. A lot of different reasons for that. So you can't just necessarily throw out a number, but where
Yeah.
is it trending and what's it doing based on what you're spending? So
Gotcha.
that's a
Gotcha.
big one.
I see.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, no, go ahead. Go. Keep going.
The other one was a couple other ones, attrition rate.
Okay.
I started asking this years ago, and I've probably asked this of 150 doctors at this point.
Okay.
A couple might have known what I was talking about, but nobody knew. Nobody knew their attrition rate. And
Right.
these are the people, we call it leakage, but it's people that are going out the back door that, aren't coming back.
Right.
And to me, I want to know what that is. So I figure that out real easy. I don't have a fancy MBA that I'm going to say, here's the numbers that you do to get to this complicated formula. I look at it like if last March you had 100 total patients, let's just say
Right.
that's what you had.
Okay.
This March, you had 100 total patients.
Right.
It looks like you didn't have any attrition, but if 20 of those patients this March were new, that meant you only had 80 returning patients, so you had a 20% attrition rate.
Exactly.
Why that's important for marketing is if they task, you and I to bring in 50 new patients a month and we
Right.
deliver 130, or, they get 130 patients, 50 of them are new.
Yeah.
They wanted 150 patients, not 130.
Right.
But we did our job, but it's the attrition part of it. So we want to help, right? We want to make sure that they kind of cover that. So it's so much easier to sell to the people you got.
Right. Right.
Than bring in new ones. So attrition rate's a big one. And then another one I like to look at is treatment planning percentage.
Okay.
Sales is a nasty word in dental and even in medical, but what are you throwing out to people? What are you trying to sell to people? What are you closing?
Right.
What are they? That treatment planning percentage is huge only because that makes that patient acquisition cost go down quite a bit.
Yeah.
And as marketers, we want to know, are you able to move the needle forward when these people come in? If you're tasking us to get more implant patients, what is your internal process to get them through hygiene, have that discussion, and sell them to get an implant? Because an implant's a tough one, right?
Oh yeah, it's expensive.
Yeah. So
I really like what you said about attrition rate, because to that point, it doesn't matter how many leads you send a practice. If they're not keeping these patients happy, if they're not really, providing the care that they deserve, then they're just wasting money at that point. They're not growing in a sense. So I think that's so important. Also for you, like when it comes to, marketing or just overall general growth, what have you seen to like drive the most consistent results?
well, I mean, you just said it, it's consistency.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think finding mediums that consistently deliver for you,
Yeah.
and finding new ways to improve on those,
Okay.
that's important. There's, I could talk about trust here in a minute, but you know, you can get on Facebook as a doctor or dentist, and there's all these different people selling, oh, our patient accelerator program that in 72 hours you get 50 new patients. There's just a lot of gimmicks that have worked at some point or worked for some
Right.
doctor, but that doesn't mean they're going to work for you. And then as time goes on, marketing people just aren't trusted anymore.
Yeah.
So it makes it really hard for us to do our jobs. And I think that you have to play around with that. But if I'm just pinpointing it down to what I've seen over 10 years of doing marketing,
Okay.
it's the ones that can do both the persuasion and the influence.
Yeah.
And generally that's a good combination of direct mail and SEO.
Yeah.
And mainly because people that are in market for whatever dental procedure they need right now, that's a very, very, very small amount of people.
Yeah.
With a lot of dentists competing for that. Where if you're constantly out there with information and sending out some prompts in the mail, like a direct mailer, but they can also search online and find content that's not dentist Charlotte. It's actually, you know, they're looking for something specific.
Sure.
You're creating influence. They're not going to choose you right now. We live in a time where it is impossible for us to send out a direct mail piece and automatically somebody's like, you know what? I'm dumping the dentures. I'm going to get a full set of implants for 30 grand.
Right.
When they want to do that, they're going to do that.
Yeah.
Because everything's on demand now.
Right.
Thank you, Amazon. But it's, you want to be, that's why branding's important. It's
Right.
you want to be top of mind. I think back to when we were kids. I'm trying to think of a good example of that. Lens crafters, remember those glasses in an hour?
Yep.
I mean, maybe you didn't go to Lens Crafter to regularly get your glasses, but if those things broke, that's where you were headed.
Knew where to go. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it was top of mind for sure. So that's what I tell people. If you want to be consistent, find the things that consistently work for you.
Right.
And always do a contingency budget. Like you need to budget. People that ask me to give them a budget, I'm like, what are you comfortable spending? I can make a whole budget for you, but
right.
You know, what can you stomach and realistically do if it was to deliver X amount of results?
Right.
And so that contingency budget, prime example, we did have somebody do a church bulletin one time. It was $60. They got 30 new patients at an average spend of $1,500 over that first year.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there looking at that and I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but it was cajillion, whatever percentage to one ROI. And I'm like, so I could go out now and be like, I get my clients at 2,800% ROI. I mean,
right.
at one time.
Exactly.
But the dentist is like, for $60, just sign a year contract. Well, of course, by like month 7,
yeah,
he wasn't getting anybody, you know, that was done. He
right.
You know, so you really just have to be consistent in the mediums that you can, and that's why digital marketing's very hard, because it changes so much. The rules change so much. It's a lot to manage.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So I guess to piggyback off of that question, so, you know, you and I, we both work in the marketing world for dentists. From a consistency standpoint, I see this happen all the time. Where do you see dentists not, like, when they're investing in marketing, but maybe they turn it off, or maybe they do it in waves? Like, what are you seeing when they stop being consistent? I understand, like, COVID-19 now, it's going to cause, dental practice to stop their marketing plans and growth strategies. But just in a general sense, where do you see, I guess, just business owners having a different mindset of what true consistency means with their marketing?
Yeah, so this is what sets you and I apart from, I believe, 90% of other marketers.
Yeah.
Is we believe very strongly in strategy and planning that includes the owner.
Yeah.
You're not buying marketing from us. You're hiring us to do a job for you.
Right.
And if you're a good leader, you're in charge. You're not going to micromanage the process. You're going to let us do what we need to do, but we need to sit down and do a strategy so that we can test and measure and find the things that are consistently delivering. And when they're not consistently delivering, why?
Right.
I'm a big information gatherer, but that doesn't mean that a rabbit hole I got into was when digital became even more prominent, I was like, let's do geofencing, and we're going to do Facebook ads and ads on LinkedIn and Instagram, and we're going to write articles and put them on ZergNet.
Yeah.
So you start to do all of these things. You don't know if any of it's working. And really what you're doing more than anything is confusing the consumer.
Right.
Right. I mean, you know, so it's, yeah, clarity is a big one for me too. Making
Okay.
sure you're clear in your messaging. You know, when people call us to do direct mail, the hardest conversation I have to have is, I can't put 80 things on this direct mail piece.
Right.
You know, we'll put 3 offers maybe on the back, but I'm a big fan of one ad, one message.
Yeah. I like that.
That's why we do, you know, marketing the way we do it, or direct mail the way we do it. Is this is going out to a busy mom, so she gets this. This is going out to a senior, they get that. So everybody gets a relevant message. But yeah, it's don't try to confuse people.
Yeah, you're exactly right, because it's really connecting pain points to your targeted audience, whatever granular level that is. But you don't want to have the general message for everyone, right? Like you want to break it down to, like you said, a mom, or a kid, or whoever. So you're exactly right. So let's pivot from marketing. Let's talk about performance management. So, like, why do dentists, why should they focus on performance management?
I think a lot of it with performance management, I know that's kind of a corporate term,
Yeah.
but I didn't want to throw out terms like practice consultant, and that can mean so many different things. Performance management is truly the activities that you're going to do to grow your practice, and we do it on the human capital side. So we don't do anything on the clinical side, because I want the owners, the leadership teams, even if we're working with an associate, I want them to know how to run a business. So at the end of our engagement, I want them to be like, you know what? I'm going to buy a commercial carpet cleaning company, and they know how to run it now.
Yeah.
So really, performance management is making it to where you're creating predictable outcomes.
Right.
Ultimately, it becomes enjoyable to run your practice, but your communication strategies are so rich that you're never struggling to figure out how to communicate with somebody.
Yeah.
That's why we use those DISC assessments, because they really do educate and train people on, this person's different. They behave differently.
Right.
They are yelling at you, but there's a way to unwind that and make them feel like they're getting what they want.
Right.
So it's important in that regard. Again, we talk about KPIs and all those numbers. That's going to help us figure out performance, but it's not something, our engagements may last a year, depending on what somebody wants to do. The first step we do with everybody is we do that DISC assessment with the leader. And if they don't like that, they didn't think that was valuable, we give them their money back and we move on.
Okay.
But I do that because if somebody doesn't find that valuable, we're probably not going to have a successful engagement anyway.
Right. Right.
And, we talk through, I'm big on agreements versus guarantees.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've gotten asked numerous times, can you guarantee results for marketing? No.
No.
Not at all. I mean, people that would ask me that, I'm like, do you know how many humans are involved in that transaction that can screw this up? No. Right. But I'm big on making agreements. If I'm a dentist and I'm sitting in the chair and this person's blatantly lying to me about how much they floss, I need to just be honest with them and say, okay, I get that. If you don't want to floss, it's tough, it's hard, it's not motivating, you don't want to do it. That's great. But instead of us seeing each other every 6 months, why don't we see each other every 4 months? Just because here are the things that can happen, during that time. Same thing with, my engagements. It's like, let's make agreements. Let's set expectations in a way that we know we can work together successfully.
Right.
And really, it's getting people to let go enough, be really, really, really ridiculously in charge, but let go. Don't micromanage.
Right.
Not just me, but their staff and their employees. So it really does. It creates a rich experience, and you kind of get, at the end of the day, that perfect combination between happiness from the leader,
Yep.
the team's happy, they're bought in, the patients are happy and they love what they're seeing out of the practice. So it makes it hard for them not to go talk about it. And one of the things that I don't think a lot of people are realizing, they're starting to get it more now. If they're running ads, say they're doing direct mail through me, or they're running ads online with you, however they're getting there, on the back end, you know, we want them to refer other people. If you get 10 new patients from a direct mail piece, let's just say,
Right.
on the low end, but let's just say that's what you get. And 5 of those people loved their experience and they're going to go talk about it and get one other person in. That just starts to multiply in ways you can't imagine.
Oh, yeah.
It's like adding more money, giving your financial advisor more money. And marketing, in my opinion, marketing is the best investment you can make in your business.
Yeah.
You know, I'd love to be able to give the same amount of money to financial advisors and it come back the same way that marketing does.
Sure.
But again, like I was saying, you need to be involved and pay attention to it. So performance management helps you keep an eye on what's working, creates predictable outcomes, alleviates stress,
Right.
and gets the team engaged, it gets the patients engaged, and really starts to create a great brand that has both referrals coming in and it can really convert those marketing calls and grow practice.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I know we kind of, talked, about an immense amount of different strategies and, management tactics and all those good things. So breaking that down to consumer behavior. So how, patients are behaving online or in the community to get in front of them, especially during COVID-19. How would you recommend dentists to position themselves as a trusted provider?
Yeah, I think this was happening before the pandemic because, I mean, we all know this, right? You can't trust everything you can't really trust the majority of what's on the internet. But that's why I've kind of cooled off on some of the social media channels. Even LinkedIn, that was a pretty reliable source for a long time. I'm starting to read people's things on there. They're so opinionated and they're trying to drive people in a different direction. And I'm like, that's still sales. And I needed content. I needed thought leadership. And that's not what I got. So really to be trusted, I mean, you have to start thinking about what the consumer's feeling.
Right.
A dentist, a doctor, whoever it might be, they're not competing against other doctors and dentists. They're not competing against other providers. They're just simply competing against the status quo. People are not going to change that behavior, and that's getting worse. So I think now you're seeing more people like, well, I'm not going to go to the dentist until there's something wrong because it's not really affecting me, which we know is untrue, right? You can have anything going on. And so it's important if you're going to do that. I tell every client that I start working with, I love this because it's 2 pieces of advice I give to be successful in the trust economy, as I call it.
Right.
If you're getting ready to do business with a stranger, make sure they know you will not fail them. Even if something doesn't go right, you're going to do everything you can to provide them a successful outcome. So this goes back to the whole guarantee thing, right? Yeah. You don't have to guarantee it. They just need to trust that if something goes wrong, you're going to take care of it and take care of them.
Right.
And I even feel like reviews to some degree, like I go back and I look at the different economies. When we got out of the recession back in 2008, we kind of hit this Groupon economy where everybody was like, if you don't give me a deal, I'm not buying your product or service.
Right.
And that lasted a while. I think we kind of got into 2013, 14, economy recovered enough. And then reviews blew up. Like the most trusted thing online was reviews. And reviews are obviously still a big part of things, but I'm not sure people trust those as much.
Yeah.
And, there's also people just simply putting statements. I need stories.
Right.
Like I chipped a tooth on a Friday night and Saturday morning they were there helping me out. Like I need that.
Right. Not just thank you for the appointment.
Not a review. I love Janet at the front desk.
Right.
Great. How's that going to help? But I mean, I'm not trying to downplay reviews.
Sure.
then before COVID-19, I really felt we were transitioning into a referral economy.
Yeah.
And that was, I get on my wife's mommy group on
Okay.
Facebook just because I have to see the conversations going on in there. And if any service provider like isn't on there, not looking to see, and there's all different types of Facebook groups,
Yeah.
but I mean, my wife asked one day, this is when our daughter was 1 and started to eat solid foods. We'd
Okay.
asked the doctor about, pediatrician about peanut butter.
Okay.
He's like, yeah, you could start introducing that now if you want to. He's like, some people wait, I mean, just kind of, he was vague about it, which I probably would be too.
Sure.
But he's like, there's no harm in it. She, of course, poses that question to the mommy group. And I mean, the entertainment value I got from the thousands of comments people were writing in there, like, oh man, I'd have, give my kids cigarettes before I give them peanut butter. It's like, this is where every dentist, doctor, service provider has to know this is going on.
Right.
You had better be buttoned up with your team and your experience and
Yep.
all that, because it's going online, and it's going online to a place you can't do anything about.
Yep. Yep.
So you have to be careful with that. And so I think even if you work as hard as you can and make agreements, not guarantees, with the patients that come in, and you've got to, again, back to the whole disc training. If you know what that person needs, like if they're high D, give them 3 bullet points, let them make a decision and move on.
Right.
Somebody that's an S and a C that needs a lot more information, or they may be a little more sensitive to what's going on, you need to spend a little more time with them.
Sure.
But you have to know that.
Yeah.
And people are very bad now about not looking you in the eye and telling you what's wrong. They just take it to the internet.
And it's crazy you're saying that, because I had a dentist who, one of their, I guess at one of their locations, one of the doctors, they just had patient had a bad experience. They went on the town's Facebook group and was blasting that doctor. And
what do you do?
Yeah, what do you do? And the dental owner was like, or he was just like, hey, how do we get this removed, or how can I get access to it? And with a lot of these Facebook groups, you have to like submit a questionnaire to get approved to be in the group. And I mean, he was livid. But to your point, yeah, you have to be buttoned up. You have to treat your patients the right way, because they can go online and ruin, your whole business almost. So you're exactly right. But yeah, that story just resonated, because I was like, man, I remember when that happened.
Yeah, and I mean, you even look at this guy was completely wrong, and I'm not condoning this at all. But remember I think it was a dentist that shot the lion. Remember that? And
Yeah, I did hear about that. Yep.
well, so of course, once everybody found out who he was, they went on his Yelp and gave him terrible reviews and Google and all that. And I mean, I agree, it was horrific and horrible. And I'm not saying I'm glad that his business shut down. I just thought it was odd that Yelp and Google and those sources allowed people to leave reviews that had never been in there, and the review was not about the service. And that's happened to a lot of my clients, where they'll be like, then I never saw this person. They're just a sister of somebody else that's mad.
Right.
And I'm like, I know, and we'll send it to Google, and Google may or may not take it down. But so I think that's where things are going to get more unreliable on the review side. Netflix doesn't use reviews anymore.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, because it kind of kept content from people.
Okay.
Because people were like, oh, here's the top rated, shows to watch. What about the ones that just haven't had a chance to gain an audience yet?
Gotcha. Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, and again, reviews are a big deal, because people are going to look and see. If you've got a 3.9, they're not going to.
Right.
If you've got a, 4.6 or above, people are like, okay, great.
Right. Now it also makes sense with how Yelp's platform operates now when it comes to reviews. So if you don't have like an active account in Yelp, your review will not show up. And then in Google, if you're, a disgruntled employee, or, you're going around just leaving bad reviews across the internet, then they're easier to dispute. So I'm seeing them make adjustments based on, trying not to dilute the quality of the types of reviews that are being, submitted on these online platforms. So yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah. I mean, I had this conversation back when we were doing a lot of pay-per-click with a Google rep. I was like, I need to understand your review platform. But one of the things I was saying is, if I do have something to screw up my credit, at least over time that goes away.
Right.
You guys leave reviews up forever.
Exactly.
So it's good and bad, right? So if I'm a consumer and your business has 4.7, 3,000 star, whatever, but
Yeah.
you've really been horrible the past 4 or 5 months under new management, I'm going to assume that you're really good and go there.
Right.
And vice versa. And if you were bad, but now you've got new management, or you hired a new office manager and she's really killing it and things are great and you're back on a new track, you're still cursed by reviews from 7 years ago.
Right. Exactly.
That makes sense to me. So
Exactly.
I could go on. There's my number 3 pet peeve right there.
I know it's really good. So I think that concludes, all of our main topics. I just want to say again, appreciate you jumping on this podcast. I think you've been in the dental space 10 plus years, but I think you've been in the advertisement space for 20 plus years. Wealth of knowledge, wealth of experiences, and you started your own, consulting business, business management company with also, you launched Dental Inbound, which is more advertisement. And, I think a lot of people don't know, you're DIS certified. You also, run a lot of direct mail campaigns for the offline referral marketing strategy. And then from just a business management, you really focus on, team leadership, business owner leadership, marketing consulting, team culture, and all those good things. And I think a lost art where you really focus on is patient experience, and also really analyzing the demographics. Because with any marketing campaign, if you're not looking at the demographics, who do you know who to target? Like how do you know to set up these campaigns and target the right people? So, and based on what the business goals are. So I think a lot of what you do is amazing. And I think, a lot of dentists definitely need, someone like you on their team. But any last words? How can people reach you? How can they find you online and so forth?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you. That was very nice. I appreciate that. And, you've done a great job with our clients as well. So, I definitely highly recommend MedRank and your services, but, I'm pretty open. I mean, I don't know if it's okay. I give my phone number out, shoot me a text. It's 704-907-3586. You can email me you can do ben@benshaver.com, and benshaver.com is my consulting page. And then Dental Inbound, dentalinbound.com. We just do direct mail for dentists. That's all we do. We've done that for 10 years. We're good at it and feel good about it. So those are the different ways. I'm sure you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, but just shoot me a text. And on the websites, there's forums that are really easy to get on my calendar too. So.
Nice. And we'll include all of that information in the description of this podcast. Now, if a crazy person calls you, don't blame it on the healthcare marketing podcast.
Well, I can't. Yeah, I mean, I can blame it on a lot of different things at this point. When you start, this, once you start putting out content and people know more about it, they call with all sorts of questions, and which is fine because I learned something. And that's right. I'll leave this one last tip for people that has worked out well with a lot of clients. Have your front desk keep a journal of every question that somebody asks when they call. Because we have found out a lot of different things performance-wise there. It's great for blogs, for SEO. What's a common question? You can go ahead and answer it online.
Yeah, that's good.
But it's also, if a lot of people are calling about the same insurance, maybe you should think about it. So that's one thing I borderline require people to do, because that gives me the most knowledge of anything.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. So again, everybody, this is Ben Shaver. If you need him as a consultant or part of managing some of the leadership and the facets of the internal side of the business, please contact him. I'm Lamar with MedRank Interactive. This is the Healthcare Digital Marketing Podcast. We appreciate you tuning in. All right. Thank you guys. Have a good day.